They're here for the food, huh? What? They all went back to bed. I see. No comment. Since I was laying out like I was in bed. I do miss my recliner. So when I go back home, I'm going to get in my recliner. Pardon me?
After you put your sweats on.
Yes, after I put my sweats on. I'm going to get my ice pack out. Okay, does someone have a song they'd like to start with? Joe. 13. 1-3 in the Heavenly Highway. Glory, hallelujah, I shall not be moved. Anchored in Jehovah, I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved. In his love abiding, I shall not be moved. In unfighting, I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved. Though hell assail me, I shall not be moved. Jesus will not fail me, I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved. Though the tempest rages, I shall not be moved. On the rock of ages, I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, I shall not be moved. Are we done? Okay. Couldn't remember if we did 4 or not. Someone else, another song. Sandy. 12. In the garden. 12. I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the ever known. He speaks and the sound of his voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the melody that he gave to me within my heart is ringing. And he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I stayed in the garden with him, though the night around me be falling, but he bids me go through the voice of hope. His voice to me is calling, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as he tarries there, none other has ever known. Okay, would you guys be okay with 2 songs today? Okay, thank you. We'll try for 3 next week.
All right, well, good afternoon. Good to have everyone here. Good to see everyone. It is, it's like a big crowd, and it's, which is fine. I'm glad we had, it was great to have all of our visitors this morning. It was good to have the services we had. So, glad that we had everyone there. So, in way of announcements, we do have the ladies' Bible study at 10 on Wednesday, so ladies, please come be part of that. And then we will have our church business meeting, so church members, please plan on being here Sunday, be here Sunday, but plan on being here Wednesday, and we'll conduct the business of the church. So, any other announcements? Okay, all right, if there aren't any others, Brother Joe, would you open us up in a word of prayer? All right, so we have been going through creation, and so today we are going to look at day 4. So if you'll open your Bibles to Genesis. All right. So just kind of have a quick recap of where we are at and what we've looked at. So we've been looking at creation and taking it on a day-by-day basis, looking at each day and looking at different things and considering and really looking at things that he has created. So first of all, we find at the beginning, I believe verse 2, verse 1 is stating, in the beginning was God, and then he created the heavens and the earth, and then you go into verse 2, which starts describing what he's doing, okay? So he essentially is, day 1 is just, or verse 1 is just an introduction verse, and then the rest are describing that first verse. So verse 2, I believe, is essentially the foundation. In the beginning was darkness and water, and so that's essentially what the foundation of the world and the earth and the heavens and everything, that's the foundation of what was started. And the Spirit of God moved upon it. So that's verse 2. So day 1 really is verses 3 through 5. And as you look at verses 3 through 5, what we have is he creates light, and he takes and separates the light from the darkness, okay? I believe that light is Jesus Christ, okay? Because we don't have the sun yet, okay? And so that light is Jesus. And I like this illustration because it's Jesus, darkness, and the water, okay? And you really just that's what we have there at the beginning of day 1, okay? Now, day 2 is when verses 6 through 8, is when he separates the waters, okay? And so you have the waters that are that would be on the earth, and then the waters that would be above the heavens. He talks about separating and expanding, putting the expanse, or what we would consider the sky, between the waters, and so you have that whole situation and that happening on day 2. Now, it's one of those things where this is one of those things I have to take on faith. Why does it take him all day to do this? I don't know. It just does, and he decides to rest, or as he speaks, these things happen, and so there's a lot of this stuff you have to take on faith, and there's a lot of things that happens that is because just it's the way God wanted it, and there's things that we don't need to know, and so that's why we have to take it on faith. So. Okay, so he has put the sky, he's put the expanse in between those, the waters in the heaven, and then the water on the earth. Now, day 3 is when we have verses 9 through 13, and we have the separation from the waters and the ground, and what is considered the earth. Now, this was the illustration I was talking to you all about last week, where I believe that there was just one continent. There was not separated one. So if you look at this picture, you're going to see, as you're looking at it on this side, says the before. That is an illustration of what all the continents could have looked like if you put them together, okay? Then what you have on the other side where it says after is what we would consider what the continents look like now, okay? I think because of when you have the Babylon and you have God separating the land masses for the languages and things like that, I believe that is what you see happening in that second picture, and how that they separated and God intended those to separate. Okay, so yes, I do believe that there was one ocean at one point, and I believe there was one landmass at one point. Okay. And then God separated those out after the Tower of Babel. Okay, so that would be, so day 3 we have the earth, we have the seas, and then what does he put on the earth? Grass, herbs, and fruit trees. Okay, so what I believe is that essentially all plant life comes from those 3. Okay, and we have that situation. Okay, so as you look at all of that, you have this land with plenty of plants, things that we can eat and that we can use for nourishment. You have protection. That was one of the other things I read. I was reading something that, and maybe it was one of the verses, but it talks about how the trees were made so that the animals had some place to hide. Okay, so they got all of that. So really, you think about it, God is getting all of this prepared, so for not just us, but for the animals too. Okay, so he's preparing these things so that way they're not stuck right out in the open, but he's putting these things in place so that way they have nourishment and they have some place that they can go to make their homes. Okay. Any questions? Any thoughts? Okay. All right. So let's go on to day 4. We're going to look at verse 14 through 19 as we look at day 4. But I want to take it a few verses at a time. So let's start with verses 14 and 15. It starts off by saying, "And God said, 'Let there be lights.'" Okay? And I want you to catch this. There is an S after the light. Okay? There's more than one. Okay? So I think that's important. "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens." And when you read that, I want you to make sure you read that properly, because he's talking about, remember, what does the word firmament mean? The expanse, right? So he's already put the expanse between the waters. And what did he call that expanse? The heaven. Okay? Or what we call the sky. Okay? So then he says, "And let there be light in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let there be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." Okay? And verse 15 says, "And let there be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." Okay? So what I believe he's talking about, so here's what I think is happening. He's already made the heavens, which we would consider the sky. Now he's talking about the expanse beyond that, where those waters are, where I think there's a layer of ice. From there out, this is where he's talking about. That is the expanse that he's talking about. So he is creating things above that layer of ice that is surrounding the world and preparing what we would call space or the universe. Okay? And as he does that, he says, "Let there be light." Now, one of the things, so this, as I was putting this all together, I started thinking about this, because you look at these verses, he starts off, he says, "And let there be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." How do we deal with measuring days? There's something that spins, right? The globe spins, okay? Not only does the globe spin, but it revolves around the sun, okay? Now, I don't know if it happened at this point, and I'm not going to argue either way. There's part of me that thinks that maybe this happened in day 1, and part of me that thinks that it's happening now. But I wouldn't have a problem if someone wanted to tell me that he started the globe spinning at day 1, okay, to hold the waters in place. Now, does he need the globe to be spinning to hold the waters in place? No, okay? If you want to tell me that he started spinning the globe at this day, I'm okay with that, okay? I'm fine with that, because I think it fits, because that's when he starts putting because he puts these lights in place, and we'll talk about what those are, but they start the seasons and the days and the years, okay? And we measure the days and years by how many times it goes around the sun, and the earth goes around the sun, and the spinning of the world depicts the day, okay? So yeah, I don't have a problem with either one. So, and I think that's one of the things, it's one of those things it would be interesting to know for sure, but he doesn't tell us. But he does tell us that I do believe that this is when he starts the world on the axis and starts revolving around something, that light, which I believe is the sun, okay? Now, as he creates the lights, the light are for the day, to divide the day from the night, and then set for not only for the day, for days and years, but he also talks about seasons. Why would seasons be important? You have a growing year or growing season. You have a non-growing season. So even, okay, for harvest and reaping, ripening, thank you. You know, I never thought about this, but, you know, the Garden of Eden had winter. And what did that look like? Did they have snow? Probably not. I don't think they had snow yet because they never heard of what rainfall. But they still had some type of winter. I don't know what it looked like, but he talks about seasons and that there was a growing season, there was a ripening season, and go ahead. Right. Right, yeah. So what that looks like, I don't know, but Jesus or God did implement and God did set up the world to have seasons, okay? So those definitely, now there are some places that have more definite 4 seasons than other places. Bend, it all depends on the year. Right now, we really are not having a winter. Our winter is very mild compared to previous years, okay? And when you look at other places, you go over to the East Coast right now, they're probably saying, we are so done with winter, we're ready for it to be over. And so it all depends on the times, it's all in God's control. But he did set that up, and I think that's all depending on these lights that he has put into place, okay? And so he talks about one for the day, one for the night, and he also talks about the days and years. I want to talk about these verses. So 74 Psalm verse 16 and 17, it says this: the day is thine, the night also is thine. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun. Okay, thou hast set all of the borders of the earth. Thou hast made summer and winter. Okay, so God has created all of those. And again, this is David talking, and he's reinforcing the summer, winter, those seasons, the sun, and the light. The other verse that I liked was in the 104th Psalm, verse 9. He says, he appointed the moon for seasons. How does the moon affect the seasons? Anyone have an idea? The what? Right. Okay. 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 Anyone else? Okay. Go ahead. Right. So one of the things, if you talk to a farmer, the dew point, one of the things is they measure the dew point. And the dew point typically is highest when? In the mornings, or around the time when you see the moon coming around, because of the tides and the gravitational pull. And so I think that's one of those things that when it comes to the seasons, during that growing season or during that harvest season, that moon and where it comes is very vital to the tide and what that looks like. So that's it. You're right. I do think that was a measurement for the days and things like that. But they also use the moon and those times for that dew point and the tide and things like that. Okay. It also says the sun knoweth his going down. Thou makest darkness, and it is night, wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep forth. I found that interesting. David writes about wherein all the beasts of the forest do creep forth. When? At night. And typically that's when you see the beasts running around, right? You find them. Now, there are some that don't. They typically roam around during the day. But, one of the things, when I was reading this and I thought about it, they talk when one of the worst days for hunting is when you have a full moon. Because when you have a full moon, the deer and the elk stay out all night. And so in the morning time, they bed down because they're exhausted from being up all night because the moon has been up all night. And so I found that very interesting that he even tells you that they're going to be roaming around in the forest and things like that. So again, it's all part of God's plan. So anyone have any thoughts on these verses? Okay. All right, let's go on to the next one. So verse 16 is, and God made two great lights. And so this is where he talks about the lights, and then now he's going to talk about the two important ones. It says God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. And he says he made the stars also. Okay? Now, I believe that God created all of the universe on day 4. Okay? He would create the greater light for the day, which is what we call the sun. Okay? The lesser light for the night, which we call the moon. But also when he created the moon, he created the stars. Okay? And so he would create all of those things. The other thing I believe is he created all of the stars on day 4. Now, why is that important? Because there's many people that will tell you that, well, scientists will tell you, well, we just discovered this new star. And I just want to tell them, no, you didn't. It's just one that you finally got to see. It had already been created. It's just you got the opportunity or the technology to where you can see it at this point. So I don't think there's any new stars. I think God at this very day, he created all of the stars that are in our galaxy and the universe as far out as we're going to ever be able to see. And he created all of those at this moment. Now, the stars are important because they would use the stars to be able to tell you what month and things like that. The stars became important because they could measure you, start going by it for your calendar and counting days and things like that. So you didn't want just the moon, you need those stars, because not only did they count it for days, but later on we find they use stars to navigate, right? To travel the world, not just through this, not just on the sea, but on the earth too. When they would travel from place to place, they would use those stars to measure and figure out where they're at. Okay? Any questions on this? Okay. All right. verse 17. Oh, well, I already talked about those. So he created the sun and the moon, and then he created all the stars to go with that. Verse 17 through 19. God set them God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light unto the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Okay. Now, what was the purpose for all of these things? Well, I believe we find that we've kind of been talking about this already, but God would place these things in the expanse beyond the heavens for light, for during the day. That way we could see, we could work, we could do those things that we would need to be doing. Then he would put the moon and the stars in at night, which would be lesser, which would be the time in which we were to rest and let our bodies regenerate, so that way we could work the next day. Not only that, it affects the plant life and how it grows, because you have some plants that close up at night, and then they open back up during the day, so they can take in the sun or the UV rays to where they can grow. Then the sun would help them to help the plant life to grow through I forgot what they call that, but photosynthesis, yeah, that word. Yeah, I don't even have braces and I can't say it. That word. But we see that plant life would use the sun to grow and be able to grow the way that he has intended. So I believe God created that at this point. I also believe that through the moon, you have the gravitational pull that starts to happen. So then once mankind and humans come on, that's when you have gravity, because gravity has already been put in place on this day. So really, I think day 4, there is a lot of things that happens, so that way when animals come on the scene, everything's ready, okay? It was, because if you don't have gravity, what's going to happen to those animals? They're just going to go into space, okay? And if you believe like I do, there's that layer of ice, they're just going to go up to that layer of ice, and that wouldn't be good. So, but he created it perfectly, and he created it in the process in the way that would be sufficient and work for the rest of the creation. You know, and as I'm going through this, it's one of those things that I keep getting reminded, and I keep getting, and I don't know about you, but I always remember, you know, God had this all figured out before he even started putting this in place. He had this all planned and ready, and he knew exactly what he was going to do day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and he knew that he needed to do day 2 for what he was going to do for day 3. And he knew that if that didn't happen, day 3 wasn't going to work like it was supposed to. So he had all of that figured out, and through all of that, we have what we have for our creation today. And for me, it just, not only is it just the power of God that you see, but you see the intelligence and the knowledge. And for me, it always reminds me, it wasn't some guy or some alien that came to this place and said, I'm going to create a world. There was a creator, and it was God. It had to have been. Because if we tried to do this, we'd mess it up. We'd be going to the animals first because we were hungry, and then we just get everything all out of whack. And so God did this, not just created it perfectly, but the plan and how he, what's the word I'm looking for? The sequence, yeah, I guess that's the best word. The sequence in which he made it was perfect also, okay? So keep that in mind, that if you get any one of these days out of place, you got a mess. These had to happen the way that God set it up and God put it in place. So, anyone else have any comments or thoughts? Okay, I want to read a verse out of Psalm. 136 Psalm, verse 7 through 9. It says, "To him that made great lights, for his mercy endureth forever. The sun to rule by day, for his mercy endureth forever. The moon and stars to rule by night, for his mercy endureth forever." And the reason I wanted to read that is I think that's important for us to remember. This Almighty, our God, who created this planet, who created this world, who created the universe in which we are within, has mercy upon us. Okay? And his mercy isn't just for a little bit. It's forever, and it is renewed every morning. Okay? I don't know about you, but if I had this type of power, I don't know that I would spend it on lowly humans. Right? If we're honest with ourselves. But he did. And just like we talked about this morning, you think about we read the verse a couple weeks ago. Before the foundations of the world were even created, God had already made a plan to send his son to die on the cross. And he already had planned to show mercy upon you and I, on Adam and Eve, on everyone. But yet, he still went through this process, this 6-day creation, to make this perfect place for you and I. That's love. And you think about the mercy that we have from our Father and from our God. We didn't deserve all this, but he gave it to us. And he has provided this world for us to live, for us to be able to do and to fulfill this life. And we've, for some 4,000 or 5,000 years now, we have been on this earth, and he has still been our God, and he's the one that has created it to be. And am I okay in saying this? He's the one that has sustained it. It's not us. When man gets involved with trying to sustain this earth, they mess it up. Okay? And I think he's the one that has sustained it to where it has lasted this long. God knows how long it needs to last. And it's going to last until he comes back. And then when he's done, he'll take care of that. He's going to create a new one. Okay? Now, as we look at that, as you can think of, I just came across this verse, and I just thought that, that mercy that he has shown, he created all this world, and he still has shown us mercy. But he looks at all of this. He looks at the sun. He looks at the moon. He looks at the seasons. He looks at all of the things that he did. That's the other thing, is not only did he start the world spinning, he started the moon revolving around the earth. Then he started the earth revolving around the sun, which causes all of the seasons, the days, the spring. It also sets up for the year. We also have the moon that spins. And this is the other part. Don't tell me that happened by just a big bang, okay? And somehow it started spinning, and it started spinning so fast and then slowed down to where we have gravity and all that stuff. No. That's harder to believe. God spoke, and it happened. And that's how it happened, okay? So much easier to believe that than evolution, okay? But he would put all of those things in place for gravity, for the seasons, and for all of those things. He looks at all of that. He looks at everything that was done, and he says it's good. It's good for him, good in which he can say, and when I say God says it's good, he's not saying it in a way that he's saying, look at what I did. He's saying, look at it. He knows that it's good for what he wants it to be, for the purpose that he has put it together for, and it's good for us, okay? The sun's good for us, the moon's good for us, and all of those things that come with having those in place, all of it is good and part of his plan, okay? Any final thoughts? Anyone have anything that they want to add? Anything that maybe I missed? Did I miss anything? Okay. Anyone have anything? Miss the snow. Well, I wish I had control over that. Brother Steve, I would have to tell you, there's been a couple years, it's like, man, Brother Steve's praying, he must be really good and connected with God, because we really had some snow fall this year. But this year, I don't know what's going on. God has something else in mind, so he'll take care of us like he always does. So, okay, anything else? Okay, all right.